Hi guys. Okay, today is December 21st, the first day of winter. So we're going to go over the 5 W's. These are the 5 points that I'm looking for in a winter camp. And I've brought this up before and talked about it. I think the first time I did it was like 2012 or something. But it's something that bears repeating when we're going into a winter camping situation. And since we got this Arctic cold front about to roll over us, it's kind of important if you're going out. So, these 5 W's are what I look for when I'm looking for a winter camp. But understand, it's a compromise. Only in Shangri-La would you have a magic, all 5 points are just perfect and covered. You're going to have a little give and take. So don't let something completely disqualify you because one of the W's doesn't line up exactly right. But at the same time, bear them in mind whenever you're picking the camp. And with that, let's go to the first W. And the first W is wood. Since we're going to be winter camping, we need a ready supply of firewood. Now this, typically what I'm looking for is a big pile of something like that, a dead tree or something that's fell months ago and had time to die. If I can go up and grab and snap off the small limbs and they snap instead of bend, it's probably dry enough to burn. Same time, as my old granddaddy said, firewood warms you 3 times. It warms you when you gather it, it warms you when you split it, and it warms you whenever you burn it. I, however, am not going to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning looking for firewood. So I want a ready supply of firewood to get me through the night. Now, how much will depend on your location. But I consider an armload of firewood to be this. As much as I can get like that and still touch my fingertips. That's an armload. And usually down here in my south, where the load's going to be down maybe in the teens the next couple of days, I would want 10 armloads to try to take me through the night. And even then, that might not be enough, depending on the quality of the wood. The best wood for firewood down here in my neck of the woods is white oak. White oak produces the most BTUs, it burns the longest and makes the best coal. So white oak is what I really want to get. Pine is about a third choice, but I'll use it if I got enough of it. Okay, so that first W is a wood supply. Find the wood. Alright, the second one, water. I would like a water supply fairly close by. Now I'm willing to travel a little bit if I have to, because it's not a good idea in the winter to be right next to water or be in the low bottom next to water, because it's usually around 10 degrees cooler next to the water because of the evaporation from the water and the fact that cold sinks. So the coldest air is always going to sink downhill, right? So in those low depressions, those low bottoms, and those low water sources will be physically colder than they are a little further up the hill. So I expect to walk a little bit for water. And here's another thing that a lot of people don't get about water. You need more water in the winter than you do in the summer. You need more water in the Antarctic and the Arctic than you do in the desert. Because water is one of the chief ways of how we warm our body. And therefore, it's how it circulates the warmth around is water. It's one of the chief reasons why ladies stay so cold in the winter, because one, they hate to pee. And so they stay at almost a state of dehydration because they don't drink enough, and it makes them colder. It's a defeating cycle. So you're going to want a ready supply of water close enough that it's, short walking distance or something, but I don't want to be at the water's edge. That's important because that temperature. I want to be uphill a pretty good ways from it, 50 yards, something like that, depending on the lay of the ground. But you understand my meaning. Don't be in the deep bottom, because that's where it's going to be the coldest. So now I have found a magical site that has a supply of firewood, and it's got a supply of water. And this place here looks good. Now what's my third W? What I'm looking for now. Okay, my third W. I come here and this place looks good. relatively flat. My firewood's right there, my water's right down there. So what am I looking for? The third W, Widowmakers. This looks pretty good, right? Let's look up. There, hanging on that broke branch coming off that tree is that Widowmaker, that split limb hanging down. There are several limbs on that tree that are dead and they're just sitting there. And pine trees like to shed their limbs. So do oaks and stuff, their lower limbs. So those are Widowmakers. They're going to fall whenever they want. It could be today, tomorrow, next week. But I don't want it to be on me. So Widowmakers. There's some sort of hanging problem because remember, it's cold. Depending on where you're at, you can have trees that are frozen, snow load, things like that you've got to take into account. Ice load, etc. I want us to be someplace that's relatively crowned so the water goes away from me. I'm not going to be in a mud puddle that way. I'm above the lowest low areas for that water thing. And I found a good location. Then I need to look up and check for the Widowmakers. Make sure I ain't got a tree that's already dead and leaning in my direction. Because in the cold temperatures of things, freezing and thawing and warming and cooling, constrict and da-da-da, limbs become brittle. And under their own weight may snap without any warning. And you may get a cold, heavy wind coming through during the night. So I don't want to be sleeping up underneath potentially a couple of 100 pounds of limb coming down. So I want to look for Widowmakers. That's my number 3. Okay, number 4. I've established my camp area. I found wood, I found water, I've checked for Widowmakers. What about wind? Cold wind. Remember I talked about not wanting to be in the very tippy bottom of these deep depression areas, bottom of valleys and things because they're going to be colder? Same is true of being up on top of a ridge. Man, it's got a beautiful view, but it also may be a place of wind problems. So as that cold north wind comes down or northwest. Now you need to be aware of what your predominant wind is in your neck of the woods during the year. Now here in my part of the South, it is typically north to northwest is the direction of the winter winds coming in. And they're normally bone dry. It's the reason we don't get a lot of snow in the South. Because by the time that gets here after crossing the Great Plains and everything else, it's dumped its water load. And so by the time it gets here, it's dry. So it's a very cold wind, but it is also a dry wind. So I would like some sort of wind break. Something to break the wind. A group of trees, a hill, something that's going to be between me and that predominant wind to try to give me a little bit of a wind shield. Okay? So we've established I need firewood, I need water, I need a place that hasn't got any Widowmakers, and I've got a place that is blocked off of the wind a little bit. So now, what's the last W? And the final W, wildlife. Now, it's one of those things that we don't think about a lot, but it can make a difference. Especially if you're in the big country where you've got moose, bear, and stuff like that. I found a location. It's got firewood. It's got a water source. It's got no Widowmakers. It's got a windbreak right here. But look for signs on the ground of wildlife tracks. Is there a bunch of bear tracks running along the edge of this ridge right here? Is there a bunch of moose track running through this section right here? Because just like us, they don't like bad weather either. And they tend to just follow pre-established trails, just like we do. And so if I get my camp set up and it's going to be right on the main bear run, and you can tell that by the amount of bear tracks, you think I might have a bear showing up sniffing my tent? It's one of those things, again, that you don't think about. But the wary woodsman does pay attention to such things because he doesn't want to wake up in the middle of the night with something big and furry going, tacos? Because you're going to be eating. It's bad, cold winter weather. I'm going to be building a fire right over there. I may put my food up into a a tree or something. But look at all these layers I'm wearing. When I'm sitting there eating, that smell comes on to me, and this is going back in the tent with me. And so I will inadvertently be bringing some food source smells in there with me, other than just me. And so therefore, big things like predators like that maybe you see the tracks, or how about, forget the predator, moose in many ways more dangerous. If I got a lot of moose sign right here or something else. And I've told the story in the past to where I set up one time on a camp, and what it was large farmland, had big clumps of woods in it, and on that side and that side were big pastures, and there was a dirt road going through the woods. Well, I got in there on a section down there near a water source, sat up, and had a wonderful camp. And then the cows came through. Well, it's just a cow. Trust me, dude, when you're laying on the ground and 50 head of cattle decide to come running through there to stampede because something spooked them, or the owner of the land got on that end and is opening the gate and they can know that the food's coming in on that field, and they come hollering through there at full speed, e-ticket ride. You know, it's a cow. He don't care nothing about that tent. He don't care nothing about that hammock. He's going where the food is, or he's getting away from something. And I didn't pay attention to all them cattle tracks coming just a few feet from where I was setting up my camp. Luckily, they didn't step on me, but they did come barreling through there because the owner, at about 5 a.m., come up here and open the gate, and he's going to put out fresh feed for them, and they come just all 50 head run through there. So, wildlife, the fifth W. I have picked my site. I have checked for all of these advantages, and then I have had to make my determination. Now, again, everything is going to be a little bit of a, give and take here. Well, I'm not going to set up underneath Widowmakers, definitely. But at the same time, the firewood is going to be my primary that I'm looking for. I want a big supply of firewood. I'll walk a little further. I'll accept a camp that maybe has a little more wind than I like, or maybe has a little bit more wildlife over there 20 yards away than I care for. But at the same time, I definitely want my wood supply, number one. And then all the others I'll plug in as best I can to make myself as comfortable and happy as I can. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button before you go. I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.